Bill Decicco was far from every day. He was the type to make the most of every day. He was one of those rare, energetic sparks of life you feel fortunate to have known. His personality could light up a room with an electric vibe that was naturally contagious. He took everything life threw at him with courage and a smile, always finding a way to convert even negative situations into positive energy. Proof of this is everywhere in the story you're about to hear. A story of unlikely choices, unwavering commitment, and unbelievable odds. Bill Decicco was no stranger to hard knocks or hard times, but he was also no stranger to compassion. Despite his first marriage being fraught with the pain of drug abuse, he pressed on. Where some might find excuses to be bitter, Bill was not made that way. A regular gym and a churchgoer, Bill later met Deanne, a hairstylist and avid runner who left her first marriage due to issues with drugs. The pair later marry, but neither had children. Both Deanne and Bill had long dreamt of being parents, but were unable to have children of their own. When the subject of adoption came up, the couple agreed it was the best route. In fact, Bill insisted that Deanne consider adopting a NAS child, one with neonatal abstinence syndrome, an opiate withdrawal disorder, which can impair multiple body systems, ranging from the central nervous system to the gastrointestinal tract. Then, on February 26, 2013, a phone call came that would forever change the course of their lives. An adoption agent called and explained they had a 6-day-old mixed-race infant boy whose previous adoption had just fallen through. He went on to disclose that the boy had been exposed to multiple drugs during the pregnancy. With just hours until the boy would become a ward of the state, the Deciccos were faced with a daunting decision. But as Deanne Decicco recalls, while it wasn't what she had imagined growing up, it just felt right. After all, who better to care for and raise a child with NAS than two people who were well-versed in the trials of drug abuse? Even so, it would test even them.
Enzo was hooked to every machine under the sun and was vomiting, diarrhea, seizing, and struggling in an unconsolable way and inconsolable screaming. And even though it was the most wonderful feeling, it was absolutely heartbreaking. And Bill was so thrilled, and I was so scared. Bill had an amazing way of doing a positive spin on things. And with Enzo, there was so many different situations that unraveled rapidly, and then other things that we thought we solved, and something else new would pop up, whether it was health, whether it was behavior, surgeries, etc. And he just had an amazing way of regrouping, circling back to, we're gonna attack this with the same tenacity we've attacked everything else, and it's gonna be fine, and he's gonna be great. And I think ultimately, as a father, that gave Enzo this ability of peace and calm and confidence that I think if it was just me by myself without Bill, I would not have been able to exude that to Enzo because there was so much unknown. So I would say Bill as a father, in the short 8 years of Enzo's life, was exceptional.
That's awesome.
Some people never get that. They could have their father the whole life and not have any of the experiences that we've had. Once we had signed papers to adopt him. And so at that time, Bill had retired the moment we signed the papers. Called his boss and said, I'm retiring, and he said, when? And he said, today. I just adopted a child. And Bill had no intention of leaving Enzo unless they locked the doors at the hospital. I, on the other hand, having my job, could go back and forth, spend a few days, then go back to work, spend a few days, go back to work. And Bill was, if you asked anybody at that hospital, he was there when it opened and there when they told him he had to leave. And any time they gave him an opportunity to stay longer, he was there. It was very challenging because Enzo was going through several bouts of withdrawal from multiple addiction. And so when you're addicted multiply, there's different things that are in certain drugs that are unknown toxins. So Enzo was going through several different types of things that the doctors really couldn't prepare us for, because it was the chips where they fell is how it worked out. And so Bill was just so remarkable with Enzo being on a feeding tube and just all of the seizures and vomiting and diarrhea and inconsolable screaming in there. And they have no one in the hospital with those babies who are born addicted except cuddlers to hold them, because a lot of those children, unfortunately, don't make it. And Bill was solid there the whole entire time. And all the nurses there, every time I would show up, they would be like, "Where did you find him? He's incredible." And he would tell people all the time, "This is all I've ever wanted. Where else would I be?"
Then, in 2017, Bill and Deanne get another piece of life-changing news. It's called Lewy body dementia, the same disease that led to comedian Robin Williams' death, and Bill had been diagnosed with it, terminally. And if that was not enough, Deanne was diagnosed with breast cancer 11 days later.
I remember Enzo's favorite place is Legoland, and you could ask him about this and he'll tell you the story as well. We had gone and Bill was not feeling well for some reason once we got there. And he wasn't feeling well, and then they wound up having to call an ambulance for him because I couldn't lift him. And so we thought, the doctors had said it was dehydration, that he didn't drink enough water. So, because it was a small hospital over there in Winter Haven. And I thought to myself, this man is like the body of David, a titan. There's no way that would make him feel so ill, and he couldn't put his finger on it. And that was probably 3 months before the diagnosis. So once we started going to the doctor and they started saying we needed this test and that test, and it was $1 million workup. And then when we finally sat down and got the diagnosis, it was almost as if I could not believe that was happening to someone who was in that physically fit condition. Bill was so calm about the diagnosis. And I remember we had come home, put Enzo to bed, and I remember sitting in our bedroom and I was sobbing. And he came in and he said, "Why are you crying?" And I said, "Why are you not?" And he said to me, "Because if I died today, if I dropped dead today, you have every reason to be crying. But we have time. We've been given a gift to know I'm not going to be here. There's only one way in and one way out of here. We don't know what day it's going to be, but at least from now we can make informed decisions and plan. You have no reason to be crying." And I'm like, I was just devastated. And he was absolutely fine. And from that day on, he went and ordered books online, read about the disease, started reading blogs of caretakers, all these things immediately, where other people would have to settle into the diagnosis or have pity for themselves, or I think normally just freak out. That's not who he was. He just accepted everything as it came with grace and dignity, but also just a positive attitude. And I've really tried to take that over now that he's gone. Sometimes every once in a while I do dwell, but I try my best not to. "11 days later, I had had a spot on my mammogram that they had to do a biopsy for, and I never gave it a second thought until 11 days later, after Bill's diagnosis, I get a call that the biopsy came back clear for breast cancer. And again, as another repeat of that night after we put Enzo to bed, I'm in the bedroom crying. And he walks in, and I said, "Don't even ask me why I'm crying." And he said to me, "Deanne, you were angry at God because he's taking me away from you. And you need to live. He did this on purpose so that you would stop being mad and realize that life is a gift, and Enzo needs one of us. He's not going to have me. So from this point forward, you got to let go of that anger. We have to move forward, get you taken care of so that you can be here for him, because I'm not going to be." He decided to let me know that he had made a decision that he was going into a facility. And I was devastated. I did not want him to go live with the doctors, as Enzo calls it. And I did not want to move forward with that because in my mind, I thought, if we only have a certain amount of time, why wouldn't we be together? I'm your wife, I'm supposed to take care of you, that's vows. He had already done all of the research of what he wanted to do, where he wanted to be, and had already had a date. And so September 27th, he checked himself into a facility. We brought Enzo to school, I came back home, and he had his stuff ready to go. I packed none of it. I had no idea that Lamborghini was in there. I had no idea what he was bringing with him. And we literally walked into a place, and he walked in perfectly fine, with hardly any symptoms at all. And it was overwhelming to see where he was going and what he was doing, and the room and everything that he had done. But it was remarkable because he had so much peace about doing it and kept saying, you're just gonna come and visit me every day, you and Enzo. You're not gonna take care of me. You're not gonna see the nitty-gritty. You're just gonna visit me. And everything that I was as a father and as a husband, you're gonna remember me by in this home, because it's not gonna be filled with any of that trauma. It's gonna be filled with all the love and memories you want. And see, that facility, that's gonna be what I'm reduced to. And you're not gonna give it a second thought because you're not gonna miss me like that. And he was right, because we don't. A close friend of mine made a comment about all the charity work we do, and that, Enzo and myself and Bill, it would be so neat to have something to honor him by, maybe a scholarship or something like that. And when I sat down and Enzo and I started to really talk about it, we realized all of the different facets of what we do, and it came to me that maybe it would be an amazing tribute for your father is if we could do a foundation in his name. And Enzo was thrilled. And all of a sudden, these ideas just sparked. And before we knew it, we were in this direction of what a difference we could make in honoring Bill in a way that could live forever and continue to help Enzo and catapult him in everything that he enjoys doing naturally. And it was amazing because God has always given me great resources. I don't believe there's any coincidences in people you meet for whatever reason. And all the overlap just started to roll out into this amazing pathway to let this happen. So the Lamborghini is something that he's had for a long time. And I noticed the first day that we had gotten to the facility, he took it out of the bag and he put it on one of the tables. And I said, oh, you brought that car with you? He said, yeah, I brought it for Enzo to play with. And Enzo was in kindergarten. And I remember the first day after I picked him up from school, he asked if we were gonna go see Daddy, because we had told Enzo that Daddy was gonna live with the doctors, and he was very upset, but didn't really understand the concept. So we walked into the room and Enzo had noticed the car and he said, oh, you brought the car. And he says, I brought it, and when I'm gone, it's yours. But Enzo was only 5 at that time and never asked any more details, but I just remember Enzo saying, well, where are you going? And he never answered him. And then COVID hit. And we went through almost 6.5 months without really being able to see each other, minus Zoom and through a glass. It was horrific. And Bill called me one night, and Enzo had gone to bed, and he said to me, people are dying, and they're not letting us see our family. And he said to me, Deanne, if the curtain falls, and I don't get to see you and Enzo, and especially Enzo, you just hand him that Lamborghini, and he's gonna know I'm gone, and you won't ever have to say a word. And so on June 29th, when Bill died, he was hooked to oxygen and whatever, and when they took everything off of him, I went and I got in the bed with him, and I sat down, and I'll be damned, that Lamborghini was staring right at me. And I jumped out of the bed and I grabbed it. And it was almost as if Bill told me, gotta get that, so when you go home, you can hand it to Enzo so he'll know I'm gone. And Enzo, when I walked in after they had taken Bill away and I drove home, and Enzo came in, I handed him the Lamborghini and he held it. He said, Daddy's gone, and I said, Daddy's gone. It's pretty remarkable to have that kind of plan.
Dad was strong, kind, great cook, funny, and always helping others. He made me feel safe and supported. My dad and mom do lots of charities, so I want to do the same. I can't adopt every pet, but I can help feed them and get home. He was kind, and when he cooked together, he was always helping me how to do it. And if I messed up, he would do it. He would make a different recipe to go with that, and he was always kind to me. She's not a good cook.
Not a good cook.
I love hats. I have eczema, and the hats help it not hurt, and they feel good on my head. Probably 100.
What was your favorite?
A blue and white sombrero. At home, my dad was the same. When he went to live with a doctor, they saw a change. He had to use a cane, a wheelchair. He couldn't talk anymore or eat and drink. It made me sad. He made signs and nodded and stuff when I talked to him, and smiled. It has a little bit of my dad's urns in it, and when it right here on the side says more than words can say, because that's what my dad used to say. My dad was always kind and helpful to others. My dad taught me to take ownership. My dad taught me to use my power only for good. My dad told me to always try my best. He said to never give up and be a leader and not a follower. I want my dad to be proud of me for making a charity in his name. I will always honor him. And Decicco. My mom and dad saved me so I could be loved and supported.
Because it takes a village to raise a child. Whether you have a husband or not, whether you are by yourself, whether you have a huge family, it takes a village. I think that village is what's going to help continue to promote what we've done with adopting Enzo, and how Enzo can really break the mold of children who have disabilities and who were victims of circumstance. But I also think it can also help remember Bill's legacy for what he was and how selfless and how much he sacrificed, not just for me and Enzo, but for everyone he's loved and shown us forever. To give is to receive.
Promise me you'll catch me when I'm weightless. Hold me close before the crazy come. Until you're done with running, I'll be patient. 'Cause I